What really matters for the economy is are they really going to crack down on fossil fuels, try to tell every company how to run things? Do they not understand what a disaster this is to the economy? So
That's my
you
biggest
put
fear
your finger
coming
on the
from
question.
Houston.
I'm just blabbing instead of giving you a solid
No,
answer.
well, it's hard. I mean, it's a hard question, but we had to talk about it. I think it's important. I'm certainly most concerned about the fossil fuel side of things. There's severe animosity, much more so than the Obama era, towards fossil fuels and towards natural gas, to the point of absurdity. Especially when you consider that it's natural gas and fracking that has dropped our CO2 emissions back to 1990 levels. And they seem to have a hatred for pipelines. The very visual of a pipeline drives these people crazy, which is absurd because this is how you transport natural gas. This is a safe way to transport natural gas. It's how you avoid importing a bunch of gas from Russia, putting it in these cargo ships across the ocean. It's absurd on its face. And I worry about that the most. There's a lot of ways to attack the industry from the regulatory side without actually passing any legislation to ban it.
This is a great one to talk about because regulation in general sounds too abstract. So the problem with it is it's death by a thousand cuts.
Right.
You don't make a headline with it.
And it's a demeanor, right? It's like it's an interpretation of a regulation too. Are you interpreting? Is that bureaucrat interpreting interpreting the regulation in good faith or with an outcome in mind? Okay, because you can do both, and this is a problem. And I think the Trump administration was very friendly towards business, and I think I had a much more rational outlook on the cost of benefits. But I fear that'll be reversed.
Well, and I think fossil fuels is a particular one to notice. They call themselves the party of science. There is a science that actually tells us that nuclear power doesn't generate any CO2. That's conveniently ignored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a fact that the U.S. has led the world in carbon reduction for exactly the reason you said, fracking, natural gas, which came about. Everybody wants government-led initiatives on technology. This came about despite the fervent efforts of the Obama administration. We only got fracking because the U.S. has private property rights. Europe was able to ban the whole thing, which is why we're leading them on CO2. And the approach is a hilarious one. If you pretend to be science, we're going to get rid of fossil fuels before we have the alternative in place.
Yeah.
Just sort of a moral thing. And then we'll get rid of pipelines is a great example. Oil pipelines. Well, if you don't have oil pipelines, you ship it by train, which is way worse in carbon emissions, way less safe, worse on 100 dimensions, but just to sort of say we don't like fossil fuels. And the third point, it's not upfront. The EPA says the hell with fossil fuels. You do it through the thousand cuts. You do it through, this pipeline is crossing some holy site or something of the sort, just to keep it took 10 years.
They weaponized the court system.
They exactly weaponized. And now what's going on, I see it from the finance side. The new effort, which is not just the U.S., it's worldwide, is to use the power of financial regulation to force to deny credit to fossil fuel companies, force them away.
That's a huge one.
So that's the U.S. is actually slowly joining that party, but that's a big thing going on in Europe right now. The OCC just passed a very nice regulation saying you're not allowed to do that. Banks may not say we won't lend to fossil fuel. It'll be very interesting to see if the Biden administration tries to reverse that, because it was a regulation put in place that's saying you're not allowed to deny credit to black people, which was a good and worthy thing for them to do. But the words of the regulation say you're not allowed to deny it to fossil fuels either. That'll be a good test case to see how far they go.
And tell the audience what the OCC is.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's the Office of the Controller of the Currency, one of our many alphabet soup regulators that overlooks the financial system.